Good evening, I'm Shane Jones, leading the news at 7. The news tonight is good for employees of the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. They're going to be taking home more in their monthly pay packet starting tomorrow. This follows 2 years of negotiations with the Barbados Workers Union. The CBC staffers will benefit from the payment of increments dating back to 2013. In making the announcement late this evening, CBC's chairman, Peter Earle, said he was happy for the workers and thanked them for their patience, noting that they have been kept abreast of the corporation's financial position all along. Mr. Earle said the union was demanding that the CBC pay increments to some employees over the scale, but he said that would be clearly illegal since such action was forbidden by the CBC Act. Government will soon be embarking on a $4.6 million debushing program undertaken through the Ministry of Health. Minister of Health and leader of government business in the lower house, John Boyce, led off debate on the related bill in Parliament this morning. He says it's intended to tackle many of the overgrown lots neglected by property owners or their agents. Minister Boyce says the bushy areas represent health and safety threats.
Only the overgrown lots are health risk, but they harbor vermin and regrettably also provide cover where necessary for would-be robbers to prey on residents of our communities. So there are a lot of reasons why we need to engage in these specific programs from time to time.
The health minister also believes the penalty for delinquent property owners in this regard is not harsh enough.
When the environmental health unit moves in and clears a law because of the lack of action by a homeowner, the charge which is made of the homeowner is really extremely light. I think the number is around 18 cents or 20 cents a square foot, which is really in today's cost almost nothing, although there are members of our community who would again argue that this is an excessive charge.
Where has the money gone? That's the question being asked by St. George South MP Dwight Sutherland about the various sums of money government has committed to debushing the island over the past year. According to him, the total amount allocated has been in the range of $13 million.
In our financial statement and budgetary proposals for 2016, when the NSR was introduced, we somewhat allocated some $5 million for a national cleanup and debushing program. It was supposed to last 5 months. And now again, Mr. Speaker, we are here for some $4.639755 million again for debushing. And if my math serves me well, that's close to $13 million, $12.794 million for debushing over a 1-year period.
St. Lucie MP Dennis Kelman is encouraging owners of vacant lots to plant fruit trees rather than allow the properties to become overrun with bush.
What is wrong with people planting coconut trees on their lots if they are not going to be using them? Coconut trees grow pretty quickly and they bear pretty quickly. And when one considers the demand for coconuts now, it makes sense. And they do not even have to cut the coconuts themselves because the people, they come and cut the coconuts. And if you have coconut trees and you do not need the coconuts, the guys are quite prepared to come and clean the trees for you and prune them and so on and take the coconuts.
An opposition MP is prepared to support any legislation that would force landowners to keep their properties free of bush. St. Thomas MP Cynthia Ford says government, as the largest landowner, is often guilty of failing to keep their properties clean. And she called out churches and some business owners as well.
It is a shame, a disgrace, that a lot of the plantation owners and other business people who have large tracts of land are saving it to grow houses. And until they get the permission to grow the houses, they are not looking after manicuring those properties. And they're oblivious, and they do not care what happened to the ordinary residents who have to walk through these lonesome roads covered in bush, and the challenges that these people have to face on a daily basis. These overgrown hedges and roads and plots, sir, are also causing very serious accidents.
The Barbados Red Cross is preparing to send off its first shipment of relief supplies to Dominica. Director General Edmund Bradshaw says while the shipment will not contain food, they are essential items. He was speaking to CBC News. A team of volunteers was busy packing the items onto a truck, which will take them to the Admiral Bay No. 2. The boat's service, according to Mr. Bradshaw, was contracted by Kelvin Alkins Customs Brokers as part of its contribution to the appeal. It left Barbados today and should arrive in Dominica by tomorrow.
There are 1,000 tarpaulins. These are tarpaulins for roofs. There are 2,000 blankets. There are 900 jerry cans. And we also have some pickaxes that we're sending down, along with some kitchen kits. These are household kitchen kits. These will go in from Barbados, and of course there will be other Red Cross items going in from other Caribbean countries as well in support of Dominica.
Mr. Bradshaw says it's too early to say what the response has been to the Red Cross cash appeal, which was launched last week. But he is encouraging Barbadians to support that appeal as well, noting that it will take a lot of resources for Dominicans to get back on their feet.
We will probably check every fortnight with the banks to get a sort of update. We'll probably do after 2 weeks or a month an initial transfer, and then transfers after that. We have the appeal running until November, end of November, and we will try to operate it that way.
Despite the quick work of clearing some of the major roadways in Dominica, it remains difficult to get supplies to some parts of the country. This is according to Executive Director of the Caribbean Emergency Disaster Management Agency, Ronald Jackson. He says before Hurricane Maria hit, SEDEMA had anticipated that Dominica's northern eastern corridor, which is very susceptible to landslides in bad weather, would be a challenge to traverse. The executive director says the best option is going by air, but even that is difficult.
In the Caribbean, we do not have a lot of dedicated air assets that have the capacity to take large quantities of relief and to service so many communities in a short amount of time. So you're really trying to, our plan had to feature a number of aspects, which include, we even have a plan which includes working with the fishing co-op to try to bring relief. That's one of the plans we put in place given the challenges we knew existing going into Dominica. So it's not easy. And we do understand and appreciate that people need aid, but we have to be also aware of the limitations within the CARICOM space that may impact upon the ability to get into these difficult places or difficult terrain.
Mr. Jackson acknowledges that this has led to a backup in supplies being stored here in Barbados and other countries, but says SEDEMA is working on several solutions, one of which is the possibility of renting a vessel to transport supplies.
We're also talking to some of our partners with regards to access of a C-130 that can also pick up and fly those supplies in from here in Barbados as well as other places. So we are aware of it, and we're initiating plans to be able to move those that are here, but not just here, in other territories. Our colleagues at OECS reached out to us today to indicate that they may have access to another aircraft that can help us, and we're talking to them as well about doing some of the pickups in the OECS countries as well to try and just, accentuate the relief operations into Dominica.
The Seventh-day Adventist Church in Barbados is joining with others across the island to lend a helping hand to Dominica. Not only has the church already sent a 40-foot container of supplies to the storm-ravaged country, it also plans to look after the psychological needs of Dominicans who are still reeling from the shock of the Category 5 system. Community Services leader of the Eastern Caribbean Conference, Pastor Dale Haynes, says this year the church trained 70 people in psychological first aid, and they are waiting to be deployed.
Some of them have called me, and we'll, once we get the housing rectified down there, some of them are going in as well. Because you meet people on the streets, and they tell you a story and they started crying. We saw some there while we were in Roseau, and they started to talk to you and then started crying. It was a rough experience, the winds, and the fact of your roof going, and you run into the bathroom. Then one guy said he put over a mattress over him and his family, and that went to. So it was that kind of a thing.
Pastor Haynes and others from the church have just returned from Dominica, where they saw the situation firsthand and tried to check on some rebuilding work done in the aftermath of Tropical Storm Erica 2 years ago.
In August, we handed over 6 houses in the area of, from Erica, in the area of a place called Patma Pier or Colliho. We built 6 houses for, persons who were, the homes were destroyed in Erica. So we handed them over in August, 4th of August this year, and then now this disaster again. So we reassured the Dominicans that we are in it for the long haul. We would help in the relief, we would help to restore, we also help to rebuild.
Pastor Haynes says they've been informed that those houses are still standing and the residents are doing well. Okay, we'll take a short break here and come back with more news.
Attention all Barbadians, here is some good news. Barbados Lumber Company, Waterford and Speightstown will cushion the impact of the NSRL with 20% discount store-wide this Friday, September 29th and Saturday, September 30th. So march on over and get your lumber, plywood, paints, domestic hardware and other items at bargain prices. Don't miss it. 20% discount store-wide at Barbados Lumber Company this Friday and Saturday. This offer does not apply to cement and already reduced items. Terms strictly cash.
Do you want audience numbers? Over 140,000 people are watching Morning Barbados and the evening news. 6 out of 10 top radio personalities are found right here at the CBC. CBC delivers the audience you need.
Help support the restoration efforts for the hundreds of thousands affected by catastrophic hurricanes. Donate to the Red Cross Hurricane Relief account at any branch of the following: CIBC First Caribbean, account number 100-1163436. First Citizens, 500-900-00588. RBC Royal Bank, 210-05073. And Republic Bank, 01804-153-1001. Monies raised will be sent to the International Red Cross for its restoration work for affected persons. Appeal closes 30th November 2017. Persons wishing to post checks should make these out to Red Cross Hurricane Relief Appeal account and post to Barbados Red Cross Society, P.O. Box 300 Bridgetown, or hand deliver to the Red Cross Warrens headquarters. The Barbados Red Cross and commercial banks, on behalf of the victims of catastrophic hurricanes, thank all persons and businesses for their contributions.
Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of an elderly St. Philip man. CBC understands that Ferguson Othniel Barton's 2 brothers found him dead in his Lucas Street home around 6:30 yesterday morning. Reports are that the brothers last saw the 66-year-old when they visited on Friday. They tried to reach him on Monday over the telephone, and when there was no response, they entered the home by force and found his partially decomposed body in the bathroom. Police are expected to await the results of a post-mortem to guide their investigations. The police force is being encouraged to arm lawmen with more non-lethal equipment. The advice is coming from President of the Caribbean Law Enforcement Foundation, David Watson. Sharika Griffith reports.
The Royal Barbados Police Force is currently in possession of 50 cans of pepper spray, which were supplied by the Caribbean Law Enforcement Foundation. President of the foundation, David Watson, says the idea is that the force would test the viability of using the spray and report to him at the end of the year. The former NYPD detective says he's seen firsthand how the use of tasers and pepper spray could solve issues involving violent or combative people without casualties. However, given a can of pepper spray costs around $20 and a taser $500, Mr. Watson admits that it would be a costly undertaking if implemented.
Right now, other than baton or a side firearm, there's no other in between there. All right, the pepper spray can solve a lot of issues in terms of either selling the situation, okay? Because usually in most situations, the hands will hurt you. The person with pepper spray, they put their hands on their face, okay? So pepper spray does solve a lot of issues, but it's not a economically viable price tag that most governments can afford.
Mr. Watson made the comments during the launch of the Caribbean Law Enforcement Foundation, or CLEF, at the Barbados Defense Forces Paragon base. The foundation's primary goal is to provide Caribbean police, firemen, and other public safety personnel with training at no cost to government. Mr. Watson says the training, which is expected to start in January, will cover several areas.
Whenever I ask the island, and I've asked St. Vincent, St. Lucia, Antigua, Grenada, everyone, what do you need? What the response was? Everything. So what we do, we're going to narrow down where not the primary needs, but the more urgent needs are. I think the more urgent needs now are, of course, drugs. Because with drugs comes guns. It's intertwined here. There's no separation. But when you have a drug issue, there's also a gun issue. So those are kind of intertwined. And also, you got to start working with the youth also, because they're the ones that can be led astray to do a lot of these crimes that the average adult wouldn't do.
Some aspects of training will involve officers traveling to the United States, while in other cases, trainers will travel to Barbados for the sessions, which will be coordinated by the regional security system. Among the initiatives, the foundation is proposing to supply all officers with trauma medical kits, which contain items such as a tourniquet and a blood pressure bandage. Craig Wooten, Director of Business Development for the company which supplies the kit, says police in cities where it's used have helped save the lives of injured people.
What that does is that builds a bond between the police and the community, that the police are not just aggressors, but they're also the guardians, and that they're here to help. When that permeates through the community, a better relationship is made between the police and the community, because most crimes can be solved by the community if they participate with the police. And so not only did it save lives, but it improved morale. It improved investigations because it allowed the police to build bonds within the community.
Trainees will also have access to mental health assistance to help cope with traumatic experiences. Chief Psychologist for the City of Atlanta, Dr. Adrian Bradford, believes it can help mitigate long-term trauma.
What do we say in law enforcement? What do they usually say to people when you've seen something like that? What's the response? Get over it. You'll be all right. Man up, right? Just suck it up. That's what I've been hearing for 30 years. I've been a psychologist for 30 years, and I've been hearing that same thing. But guess what? That's not healthy. That's not a good thing to do.
CLEF was started 2 years ago when Mr. Watson retired from the NYPD. It is funded through donations from the U.S. and the Caribbean. Sharika Griffith, Cbc News.
Barbadians need to learn to forgive others who have done them wrong. The advice is coming from Senior Superintendent of Police, Euclid Thompson. He says forgiveness can go a long way in avoiding much of the conflict seen in recent times.
We can do away with the hatred, the malice, the envy, the bitterness, the revenge, the covetousness and grudgefulness which is so prevalent in our communities. Indeed, would it not be better to cultivate love, kindness, peace, self-control, temperance, goodness, meekness, and humility instead? I think so.
Ecology was the topic of choice when the Samuel Jackman Prescott Polytechnic launched its newest initiative today in its Assembly Hall. Head of the Human Ecology Division, Joy Prime, gave the first of a series of lunchtime lecture discussions which sought to give new students an idea of the courses they will be taking. The division currently offers auxiliary nursing training, aesthetics, cosmetology, home economics, and a garment course. Ms. Prime told the new students that technology will play a role in their studies as it has significantly impacted the human ecosystem.
Through video conferencing, you have an opportunity to connect and network with students from other countries within the region, internationally. Your classroom doesn't have to just be these 16 people anymore, that you can even have opportunities for professionals from other countries within the region and internationally to come and do presentations to you. It doesn't have to be just your instructor that is here. So that's a really great way that your learning can be expanded.
After the break, we'll take a look at stories making headlines across the region.
This kitchen needs painting.
Why not the whole house?
We hitting the jackpot at Berger Paints.
Enter to win free paint in one of 7 prizes in the Anson McCall Lucky 7 jackpot worth $140,000. Just spend $100 at Brightons Stokes, Brightons Express and Stationery, Brightons Insurance Standard, MQI, Berger Paints, or Consolidated Finance. Enter your code online at www.ansonlucky7jackpot.com for your chance to win. See website for full details.
Community Files.
As part of a regional consultation on marijuana, a town hall meeting will be held on Wednesday, September 27th at the Lloyd Erskine Sandyford Center from 6 to 9 p.m. Admission is free and everyone is invited. Transportation will be provided from the LESC to the Fairchild Street and Princess Alice bus terminals after the event.
The message that appeals to me the most is accepting the truth of who or what I cannot control places me in a powerful position to respond wisely versus react. This appeals to me because I can't go in the past and change what has happened already, so I should accept it and respond wisely.
Dominica's Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit is asking citizens to be patient despite the difficult circumstances. He says progress is being made in several areas, especially with the delivery of supplies. Mr. Skerrit provided an update on the situation there during a media conference this morning, which was attended by the management of several utility companies on the island.
We have over 50 tons of food supplies coming into the country between today and tomorrow. So we will have lots of food to deliver to every single household and every single individual in Dominica in a transparent and equitable manner. We are improving with the delivery of bottled water, in particular drinking water, and we're also working on the setting up of some tanks in some communities and having the water purified so it becomes potable water.
Mr. Skerrit says there has also been significant progress regarding the health services with the hospital now functioning.
The French have had since Wednesday morning, Tuesday morning they came in first, and from Wednesday morning a number of health experts at the hospital. We have brought the hospital back on its feet, covered the roofs, put in some medical equipment. As a matter of fact, we airlifted some patients to Martinique at midnight last night. Patients had to be evacuated. One gentleman who needed to be transfused no later than midday today, and we were able to get him out at midnight. There's one baby who was born prematurely, and that baby was also airlifted to Martinique and receiving medical care.
A CARICOM Prime Minister thinks that seeing to the psychological needs of Dominicans may be just as important when it comes to getting them back on their feet. Dr. Keith Mitchell was Prime Minister of Grenada in 2004 when Hurricane Ivan hit as a Category 3 system, leveling the island. Like Dominica's Roosevelt Scarrett, he had the task of rebuilding the island and says the support he received from fellow CARICOM leaders as well as others was invaluable. He says every Prime Minister who came to his home during the recovery period left a permanent mark.
Prime Minister Manning of Trinidad and Tobago was the first one who came. And he sat with me in my home. And even when it got dark and knowing that the airports were not functioning, I said, you gotta go. He said, I can't go, my brother, because I feel I'm not here because of the Prime Minister of Grenada. I'm here because of you, Keith. Because if you are not well, if you're not functioning effective as a person, you cannot do the job of Prime Minister in this condition that I see Grenada in. So I think the supporting psychologically and the friendship and the love that we give is absolutely important.
Dr. Mitchell says then U.S. President George Bush was one of his most staunch supporters in the aftermath of Ivan, but it doesn't appear as though the same obtains this time around.
I cannot say that there has been, so I could only speak from what I know, and I can tell you what happened in my case. The response from, when I listen to the fact that you have Puerto Rico destroyed and the president is talking something else about basketball players and so on. I don't know, and I don't want to stand here as a critic, but at the same time, it baffles me as a Caribbean man and as a human being, really. And that's what I'm talking about. So maybe they will step up to the plate, and I look forward to that. But it has not necessarily been so yet, as far as my knowledge goes.
7 prisoners from the British Virgin Islands are now at a correctional facility in St. Lucia. This follows their successful transfer yesterday. Just over 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Alan Chastain revealed that St. Lucia had agreed to temporarily house prisoners from the BVI after the main penal complex there was severely damaged during the passage of Hurricane Harvey. We get more in this report.
A Royal Air Force Airbus military transport aircraft touched down at the Uronora International Airport at around 9:30 a.m. Monday. On board, 7 prisoners from the hurricane-ravaged British Virgin Islands, bound for the Bodley Correctional Facility. Heavily armed personnel from St. Lucia's principal security agencies with assault rifles in hand stood guard on the tarmac as a convoy of vehicles approached the ramp of the heavy-lift turboprop transport plane. The transfer of the prisoners was facilitated through a joint operation involving the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, the Bodley Correctional Facility, and the Royal St. Lucia Police Force. Officials of the BCF have sought to allay public fears about safety and the capacity of the penal complex to house the prisoners from the BVI. Programs Manager Virginia Lesmo Joseph explains that there are special arrangements in place to secure the foreign inmates.
Presently, we are undergoing an operation where we just received a number of inmates from the British Virgin Islands.
About how many prisoners?
7. They are all high-risk inmates. As a result, they will be separated from the general population.
BCF officials continue to stress that the facility can accommodate the prisoners.
Our capacity is supposed to be 500, but presently we are at our lowest.
So the general public don't have to worry that those prisoners will be, because they had some concern that those prisoners would be mingling with the general population.
No, they will not be mingling with the general population. They are separated, and the general population has nothing to do with them.
The governor of the British Virgin Islands reportedly signed the Emergency Powers for the Transfer of the Prisoners Regulations 2017 and issued warrants for the transfer of the inmates to St. Lucia on the weekend.
A quick look into the world of sports is just ahead, but before we get there, here's a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Insurance is the most widely used method of financing risk.
Many persons only appreciate the importance of insurance when they suffer loss or damage to their personal property or possessions. Cooperators General Insurance, ensuring you are protected during this hurricane season.